Hey, what is going on, Fan Clan? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Danny Phantom. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday. Yes, it is Tuesday. Hope your week is off to a really good start and that you had a wonderful weekend. We're only a couple weeks away from Pokemon Go, but today we're going to talk about Brilliant Stars. I was pricing cards the other week for Milwaukee Pokemon Regionals. We've ended the regional tournament in Milwaukee over the weekend. It was a lot of fun. Super great time. Much better than what we had in Secaucus last month. And it was a really great tournament too. Lots of variety. And the final two decks ended up being Blissey and Duraludon VMAX, which I don't think anybody really was expecting, except maybe the people who played those two decks, with Duraludon coming out on top. It was a great weekend. Great weekend for Pokemon. But I was pricing cards last week for Milwaukee Regional just to kind of get prepared for the booth to put into our glass cases. And as I was going through things, I was kind of updating pricing on some of the Brilliant Star singles, and I looked at the Charizard V-Star, the Rainbow Rare, and I was like, holy cow, this is like $100. When did this become $100? So I was like, okay, I need to go back to Brilliant Stars now that I haven't looked at it for like a month and a half to kind of see where the pricing has settled to. It's very interesting. So I'm going to kind of flip you guys around. Brilliant Stars has fallen, and a lot of stuff has fallen pretty hard, but Brilliant Stars singles have fallen a considerable amount, which is very interesting considering the fact that the second wave of product, or third wave of product for Brilliant Stars, the reprint that we recently had, was extremely small, but because so many collection boxes are being kind of spewed out there all over the place, lots of packs are being opened, so the booster box hasn't been impacted too much. As you can see here, it's sitting at $138.73, so right around that MSRP point. And if we go and look at the amount of listings that are available below MSRP, there's very few of them. So you only have 1, 2, 3, 4 actual listings that are below MSRP, because this one doesn't really count since it's 36 factory seal booster packs. Those are most likely from collection boxes and things like that. These are actual booster boxes here. So we're talking about maybe 20-ish booster boxes that are available under MSRP for Brilliant Stars on TCG Player. Now this is just TCG Player. Obviously you can buy a booster box on eBay or Amazon or other different outlets. You can go to your LGS, but as you can see, at one point in time in May, it dropped all the way down to $128.62, and kind of in the middle of June, it dropped down to $130.41, and now it's shot up over the past week. A lot of these still move. A lot of booster boxes still move. So if you haven't gotten any of the Brilliant Stars booster boxes yet, definitely look around to see if you can find one at a decent deal. There is no plans for a reprint as of right now for Brilliant Stars. We just had our third wave, our third reprint. This is going to be a fairly popular set for quite some time, with the Arceus in it, with the Trainer Gallery, with the Evolution, with the Charizard, obviously very in-demand set, and they move really quick. So Brilliant Stars booster box is still doing really well. If we look at singles, this is where some things get pretty interesting. So Charizard, the alternate art, is actually doing okay. I don't know why I didn't change the low value here, but you can see it did drop down to about 175 at one point in the middle of June before kind of creeping back up, where it's sitting at 186.16. Its high point over the last 3 months actually got hit in the middle of May, where it was 208.06, went down a little bit, much like what we'll see with the rest of the singles from Brilliant Stars, but at least this alternate art Charizard is starting to move and trend upwards again. The rest of the cards, not so much, and this Charizard V-Star is one that I want to point out in particular, because if we look at when the set released right at the end of February, this card was selling for over $400 in the pre-order pricing, and it was by far the most expensive card in the set. It has done nothing but tank ever since then. So you can see right here, at one point it was at 179.11. That was at the beginning of April, kind of the end of March, so about a month after the set released. It was sitting right around that $200 mark, and look at how much it's lost just over the past 3 months. It's currently sitting at $102.49 for the market price, which is extremely cheap. You're looking at about an $80 drop over the past 3 months, which is absolutely insane. It's almost lost half of its value over the last 3 months. So if somebody bought the Charizard V-Star Rainbow Rare right at release and they were looking at spending around $300, look at what it's worth now, just a few short months later, only about $100. Is it going to go a lot lower than this? I'm not sure. Usually the Rainbow Rare Charizard, you would think, would stay somewhere around that $100 mark, especially when you're looking at like the VMAX Charizard from Darkness Ablaze sitting around that $50 mark. But it is possible we could see this card drop down to about $75 or so before kind of holding steady for a little while. But very interesting to see this card drop all the way down to $102.49. If we look at the Arceus V, it's sitting right now at $44.02, which is also its 3-month low. It's been doing nothing but going down, and that's surprising because Arceus is so competitively playable. It is used all over the place in the TCG. It showed up in droves over at Milwaukee Regionals recently. This card and Palkia were probably the two most played cards in the entire tournament. At one point, this card was sitting at 66.57. That was in the middle of March, end of March, and then it's done nothing but go down since then. We We had a little bit of a blip where it came up at the end of April, but then it just kind of dove, went way down, sitting at 44.02 right now, a 3-month low. Same thing with the gold Arceus V-Star. This was at 60.38 at one time at the end of March. Also did nothing but drop since then. It hit a very close to its 3-month low at the end of May right here, then kind of rose up a little bit since then at the beginning of June, and then kind of dived back down now where it's sitting at 39.71. So even the gold Arceus V-Star not immune to this. The Charizard Full Art did a really good job of staying consistent and actually rose a little bit in value. It jumped all the way up to 48.69 about a month and a half ago in the middle of May, but it's done nothing but dive since then. And look at it, hit really hard. It had a huge drop since then. It's down about $14 over the past month, where it's sitting at 34.66 currently, which is quite the drop. If we look at the Arceus V-Star Rainbow Rare, again, a little bit interesting. It is not selling for as well as the gold card, but it's not going to be a whole lot higher than the regular Arceus V-Star. It's sitting at $26.61 right now, way down from its 3-month high, which is $37.83, which it hit at the end of March. Again, a card that's super playable, and that just tells you how many of these packs have been open, that this is kind of flooding the market. So even though the community, competitive community, has bought up so many different copies and so many different variants of this Arceus V-Star because there's so many different rarities, it's still, demand is just not there enough to handle all the supply that seems to be out there. And this goes back to what we were talking about last week with that 9.2 billion additional cards that have been printed over the past year. Really goes to show you how many Arceus V-Stars are kind of out there on the market, because a Rainbow Rare dropping this significantly over the span of 3 months is definitely worth noting. If we look at the Lumineon V alternate art, this is the next most expensive one in the set. $27.55 is where it was at the end of March, and then it hit pretty hard, dropped all the way down to about $23 or so before kind of staying consistent for a couple months, and then in May it hit its 3-month low of $21.42. It's risen a little bit since then. It's sitting at $23.43, still closer to its 3-month low than its 3-month high, but it has surpassed the gold Moltres V. If we look at the Galarian Moltres V right here, the secret rare was at $30.26. These gold birds crashed really hard right out of the gate, where we were looking at about 90% drops a week after release for this one, the Zapdos and the Articuno. They got hit really hard. They were pre-ordering for over $100 at one point in time, but this one hit $30.26 in the middle of May before dropping really hard like a rock. It's sitting at $21.89 right now, which is barely above its 3-month low of $21.64. If we look at the Ultra Ball, this one is also trended downward. A lot of brilliant stars, like we said, that Charizard alternate art, kind of an outlier that it's actually increasing a little bit over the past few weeks. This Ultra Ball also going way down. $28.91 is where it was sitting at one point at the beginning of April, and you can see for the most part it's had a couple of peaks, but for the most part a lot of valleys. It dropped all the way down very close to its 3-month low in the middle of June before spiking for about a week and then going back down, where it's sitting at $21.25 right now, which is very close to its 3-month low of $20.84. The next one that we're going to look at is the Galarian Articuno V. So at one point in time, the Galarian Articuno V was sitting at $24.08. That was also at the beginning of March, or middle of March, I should say. $17.68 is its low. These are all lows. I don't know why I didn't change the letters to low instead of high, but you guys know what I mean. You've seen enough of these before. $24.08 was its high at one point. Its low point, $17.68, is where it hit kind of in the middle of June here, or in the beginning of June, before it kind of rose a little bit, where it's sitting at $21.62 currently. So about in between its 3-month low, 3-month high, closer to its 3-month high than 3-month low. But that's the only legendary bird that seems to be in the upward trend, kind of following more so along the lines of that alternate art Charizard that we were talking about. Here's the Zapdos. The Zapdos has been hit really hard. So it was at $28.09 at the end of March, and look at how far down it went. It's dropped all the way down to $18.87 currently. If you would have told me that a secret rare gold legendary bird was going to be under $20 easily available, I would have told you there's no way. But here you can see it's low, $17.69, which it hit about a week ago. It's barely above that, sitting at $18.87. And I did see listings over the weekend when I was looking at comps of some being sold for $17, $18 a piece, which is absolutely nuts. If we look at the Charizard V-Star, $21.67 was its high point, which it hit at the middle of March. It dropped all the way down to $14.54 a couple weeks ago. Again, a card that's really not overly playable, but something that's really popular amongst collectors because people love their Charizards. It's dropped pretty hard over the past 3 months, where it's sitting right now at $15.75, just above its 3-month low, which it hit at the beginning of June. If we look at the Marnie's Pride, a very interesting card, because this this one came out and it was expected to do pretty well because of the character artwork on it. Was at $28.13 at the middle of March, and look at how it's just consistently been dropping like a rock. $13.49 is where it's currently sitting. That's a 3-month low. It continues to trend in the downward direction. Not the most playable card in the world, so that's obviously impacting it a little bit, but still, that just goes to show you again how much of this is in existence, the quantity that is out there. If we look at the Arceus V full art, $25.61 is where it was in the middle of March. It went up a little bit where it stayed fairly consistent for about a month before dropping really hard. It's sitting at $14.20 currently. That's its 3-month low. If we look at the Honchkrow V, it was at $18.29 at the beginning of March, middle of March, and then dropped a little bit before going back up at the end of April, where it was kind of sitting around its 3-month high still, and then it's done nothing but drop since then, where it's sitting at $13.64. Definitely taking a pretty hard hit. Then we got 6 trainer gallery cards that I wanted to look at quick. We've got $36.92 for the Umbreon VMAX. This one hit its 3-month high a little bit later. It actually hit its 3-month high in the beginning of April here. You can see it stayed relatively consistent for a few months before dropping. It's had a little bit more peaks and valleys in here, but for the most part, it's tumbled quite a bit. $26.32 is its 3-month low, which it hit at the beginning of June. It's gone up a little bit since then, where it's sitting right around $29.29. If we look at the Sylveon VMAX alternate art, this one was $26.92 at the middle of March, and it's pretty much done nothing but follow the trend and drop quite a bit. Now, it hasn't had as substantial of a drop. You can see it's only dropped about $7, but that's still, you know, roughly 30% that it's fallen over the past 3 months. It's been pretty consistent over the last couple months now, sitting at $20.52, still hovering at its 3-month low. If we look at the Sylveon V, it was at $21.26. It actually hit its 3-month high at the end of April, which is closer to what we saw with that Umbreon VMAX, and then it dropped really hard where it fell all the way down to roughly $18 or so. Went up a little bit and then went back down to its 3-month low about a week ago of $16.97. Right now it's sitting at $17.85. Then we've got the Umbreon V, which I love. I think it's super cool looking. At the middle of May, I guess is when it hit, or middle of April, probably beginning of May, I would say. $21.37. That's its 3-month high that it hit. You can see it actually was trending in the upward direction and then fell pretty hard to close to its 3-month low. $16.35 is its 3-month low, which had just recently hit, but it's been pretty consistent at that point for about the last month now. If we look at the Mimikyu VMAX, $19.38 is its 3-month high, which it hit in March, and then kind of trended downwards, $14.59. I know it sounds like a broken record, but that's pretty much just how all of Brilliant Stars is going right now outside of that booster box. $16.98 for the Mimikyu V is where it was at the middle of March, and it's dropped all the way down to $11.11 at the beginning of June. It's gone up a little bit, but still only sitting at $11.79, so that one might be fairly consistent at this point moving forward. Let me know in the comments section what you think, if you've picked any of these up recently. It does seem like a lot of them are starting to get much better pricing, much better points in your pricing. So if you have a lot that you need to kind of purchase and pick up for your master collection, something like a Marnie's Pride or something even like these legendary birds that are super low right now, definitely look around to see if you can find a decent deal on some of these, because they have really dropped super hard. Let me know what your pulls have been like, what products you're buying right now. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Let me know why you think Brilliant Stars is crashing so hard. I do think that there's a huge contribution coming from the amount of collection boxes that we've seen. There's just this overloaded amount of product that's hitting the stores in the form of collection boxes. There's so much of it out there, and I think Brilliant Stars being in a lot of those is really impacting the pricing for a lot of these singles, or maybe just a lot of people are kind of exiting the game. We'll see. Let me know what you think. If you guys could, leave a like and a comment on the video, because it does go a long way. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for everything. I will be back probably tomorrow with something else. Until then, guys, peace!